Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening. Welcome back to AI and the Future of Work. Thanks again for making this one of the most downloaded podcasts about the future of work. If you enjoy what we do, please like, comment, and share in your favorite podcast app. And we'll keep sharing great conversations like the one we have today. I'm your host, Dan Turchin, advisor at Insight Finder, the system of intelligence for IT operations, and CEO of PeopleRain, the AI platform for IT and HR employee service. We've discussed the future of identity management in the past with great guests like John Whaley from Unify ID. We live our lives online. The stakes are high when your identity information is compromised. New technologies from blockchains to biometric authentication to AI-based anomaly detection are maturing daily, and yet we still rely on traditional passwords and two-factor processes that are easily phished or hacked. The statistics are frightening. According to survey data collected last year by DataPro, 57% of people who have had passwords phished still haven't changed their passwords. 23 million accounts are still secured by the ever so popular password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I remember that reference from Mel Brooks and Spaceballs. 51% of people reuse the same passwords for both home and work. Really bad idea. It's clear the future is different, but it's unclear which approach will prevail. We'll keep discussing what's ahead, and ultimately we'll let you decide what form of identity management makes you feel most secure when you go online. Today's guest is here to educate us about one novel approach using token-based authentication to automate everything from age verification to customer onboarding. Jaime Ramirez founded Preventor in 2017 to modernize identity management. He's an expert in the fields of financial crime risk management, anti-money laundering, and fraud prevention, having provided IT consulting services for 25 years plus to South Florida's Latin America-based financial institutions. Get ready for a masterclass on the future of your online security. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Jaime to the podcast. Jaime, why don't we get started by having you share a little bit more about your background and how you got into this space?
Sure. Thank you, Dan, for a great introduction to me. Well, my background is I've been in the space for more than 30 years, working in the banking, technology, MSBs, and also the last 20 years working directly with the anti-money laundering and fraud prevention systems, applications, and doing consulting services to financial institutions. And the last 5 years with the digital identity management.
So tell us about the problem that Preventor solves, and specifically, before Preventor, how did organizations navigate things like KYC, know your customer, or AML processes, AML anti-money laundering? And now that Preventor's in the market, what should we expect is available that wasn't before?
Well, I will say that, the industry, the financial services industry has been working hard in improving or enhancing the know your customer and anti-money laundering processes in every stage of the during the customer life cycle. Preventor, besides to be in compliance with all the regulations and international recommendations, helps financial institutions to automate the process, to digitalize and to automate the process, to minimize human errors, to improve the quality of the data, because it's less manual entry, and obviously to reduce the fraud.
So pick one customer of Preventor's that you're really proud of. Tell us how they use the system and what was the problem that they chose to solve with it.
Well, we have few banks as customers. I mean, they used to do before the customer onboarding manually at the agencies, at the branches. So that will require like from 5 minutes to 15 minutes, depending on the type of the customer. And if it's a business customer, it may take a few days or weeks to complete the onboarding and know your customers. Then after the know your customer department or BSA department has to or had to verify the quality of the information, and then according to this to do, either to do the enhanced resiliency or that, and then do the monitoring of the transaction of the customers. That process will require a big staff in the compliance department. So it used to be like one of the cost centers that requires more money in the financial institutions. So by automating this process, you basically reduce the time of the onboarding, reduce the personnel that needs to review the manual entries, and have just few of those KYC analysts to review any failed transactions at the onboarding, right? And then after the KYC is basically automated, so and the BSA department can be reduced in personnel, not in terms of the number of people, but they can use a personnel that human force to do other kind of analysis instead of manual entries.
I know that around the world, different countries have different regulations for how identity management is handled. And one of the things I'm interested in is, I know Preventor has an international footprint in Latin America, parts of Europe, as well as the US. What's different about the market for identity management solutions based on those regional regulatory frameworks?
Yeah, basically the international regulations are like, I will say that it has a framework. So in that framework, all of the countries are based on similar regulations, and each country has a specific requirements. So at Preventor, what we did is that we try to cover the as much as possible on the regulations. So if you are the country that your jurisdiction does not require some of the features, you just need to, turn off that feature, and then it's adjustable. It's flexible to your requirements, the regulations, the local regulations. But international, the know your customer and the anti-money laundering is basically the same in all the globally. It's just few things that some countries requires more or less. About the GDPR, even though the GDPR is most used in or starts using it in Europe. I mean, the GDPR is globally, so you use the same law requirement, legal requirements.
Would you say that in regard to identity or fraud detection and prevention, is the US ahead, behind, or about on pace with the rest of the world?
No, I think that we are ahead in the USA. Yes, and there are some countries that they have different kind of rules based on the demographics, based on their demographics, no? Like, for example, in Latin America, maybe you need to monitor the transactions not only by country, but also by regions, by cities, by zip codes, because the crime or the narco traffics is more in different kind of in different cities.
Not too long ago on this program, we learned about the future of biometric authentication, specifically on edge devices, but using biometric authentication locally. And the thing I was curious to know from you is what's the unique approach that Preventor takes? I know there are a lot of competing technologies and protocols and approaches. What's unique about Preventor?
Yeah, so far we are offering a different kind of biometrics authentications, the ID proofing, face recognitions, video liveness detection, and also selfie liveness detection. We're also offering voice recognition, and all of them can be combined depending on the type of risk of the transaction or on the risk appetite of each institutions, and that can be configured in different type of flows. So you can have one flow for the onboarding, you can have another flow for like recurring customers that you need to authorize any high risk transactions, or even to do the passwordless the login, for example, for employees.
Is any one particular biometric factor more secure than another, like say a retina scan versus a fingerprint versus a selfie, or is it best to combine multiple ones to increase the overall security?
We're not doing the fingerprints because that requires a specific hardware. So what we do is that we do face recognition, liveness detection, and voice recognition. I would say that the combination of the video and voice is the most secure.
Do you use a database that's external to the client? Do you have to go over the internet to get a match on the biometric data, or does that matching technology live locally on the device?
No, what we do is in the ID proofing, we verify the document itself, right? Then what we do is with the selfie or with the video, we do the face recognition, liveness detection, and then the photo match against the document. Then after, what we have is an on-demand services to additionally verify that the content from the document against the local civil registries. But that's an on-demand services, and it will depend on each country if the authorities have like an API services that we can access to do the verification.
I had an opportunity to learn a little bit about how this is done in Indonesia, where there's a government registry, and there's a company called Privy ID that has basically won the license from the government to use that government registry. Which countries have a registry that you can access via an API?
Well, in Latin America, most of them. Actually, United States is the only one so far that, I mean, they you can have access to it, but you have to have access by each state. There is no one API that you can have all the access to all the identities. But another way that we do the ID proofing, which is more secure, is by reading the RFID and the electronic documents. So basically, you can, if you do the RFID, basically you are reading the entire document, including the photo of the person. So you don't need to go to any other local registry to verify.
But so I think I'm missing how the workflow happens there. The document.
If you have like the identity document and the identity document has the RFID, the electronic chip. What we do is we read that information that is stored in that chip, and that includes the binary data of the document plus including the photo of the person.
And I'm sorry, so is there a second factor? So if someone stole my driver's license, could they act as me for authentication? Or is there a second factor that involves a selfie or something to verify that?
No, okay. Of course.
There would always be a second factor.
Yeah, it would also, yes. No, but I mean that you don't need to go to the local registry to validate the content of the information, because you already have it there. It's unhackable.
I see. And so Preventor is owning responsibility for verifying that the person holding that document is actually the person that the document says it is.
Exactly. So
Okay.
the document holder is the document owner.
That makes more sense. In the countries that have these registries, how do they require the citizens to provide their information to the registry? Is it required? How does that work?
Well, those registries are the ones that issuing the document. So they have the records of the customers, of the persons, of the people. Those are the ones that are issuing. It's like United States that the driver license.
And so if the citizens
the DMV,
if the citizens want to use that as a form of authentication, then they need to provide the information, but they're not obligated to. There's no fine if they don't provide data to the central database. Is that right?
No, the local registries, they have that information because those are the ones that are issuing the document, right? It's like the DMV. You here in the United States, you access the driver license database, and then you have your information there.
Right. So if I want to drive, then I need to provide that information to the government.
Of course, or an ID, no, for minors.
Makes sense. Is there any component of machine learning or automation, or does the Preventor system get smarter over time?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
how so?
For the artificial intelligence, you will use the artificial intelligence and machine learning for the liveness detection, for example, for the face analysis, to estimate the age and the gender of the person, to estimate other factors of the person. So we use the artificial intelligence in most of our processes, basically.
How do you mitigate for the potential impact of a biased sample generating either false positives or false negatives? For example, if the training data has, let's say, fewer underrepresented minorities, it's more likely to make wrong automated decisions when those underrepresented minorities are having let's say their age verified. How do you compensate for the fact that there may be bias in the data?
Yeah, we did a test in the last quarter of in quarter 4 of last year. We did a test of the bias, and then actually we report zero bias. Now we did using the data of some customers. We work with them, and then we test the bias to make sure that we don't exclude anyone at the time that we do the AI face recognition. And so far the algorithms of AI are working fine.
Where do you get the data? Let's say the faces or whatever you're using to do, let's say, age verification. Where do you get that data from?
No. What I mean is that the data that we use, we work in conjunction with some customers to use their data to do this test internally in our labs. Yes.
Right, but let's say I'm starting a job and you're doing age verification using a machine learning algorithm. The data that the machine learning model has been trained on, where's that data come from?
Well, no, the data, the machine learning that are trained for is the data is using the selfies and the documents, and then what you do is that you make sure that evaluating them, that the data, the results from this process, from these verifications are okay or not. Like you're reading a person that is one gender or one ethnic, and then you're looking at the document, and then you see that the document is according to with the results. Yeah.
Right. So the document says I'm a certain age, and then you can detect, let's say, from my selfie, whether or not I am in fact that age.
Correct. Yes.
And so there's presumably a database of selfies that you're using to train a machine learning model to be able to match the information in the document with the face of the person whose age is being verified, right?
Yes.
And so let's say my selfie is being contributed once I provide my selfie to Preventor. Do I have the option to not have my selfie stored, or am I made aware that potentially my selfie might be used to build a machine learning model?
Well, of course, yes.
Verification?
By GDPR, yeah, you are in control of your data, yes, and our customers are in control of their data too. Yeah.
And so through GDPR, they have a right to be removed, or at least a right to know what data is stored.
Correct. Yes, you are the right to say, I don't use my data, and then the data is being deleted. Yeah.
Are there any examples of companies in your space that have had that kind of data breached? It seems like when it's being used for fairly high stakes use cases like identity verification, you'd have to be very cautious about how that data is used and secured. What are the kinds of methods that you take to prevent a breach, and are there any high profile cases of data like that being compromised?
Well, we're using our security, and then we have some certifications under the cybersecurity, to prevent that, attacks or anything like that. And then we are also using AWS, which is one of the most secure cloud-based. Yeah.
Do you believe that at any point in the, let's say, next decade, we will truly be in a passwordless authentication environment because things like biometric authentication are more secure? Or do you think indefinitely we're going to be still having to provide traditional passwords, text-based passwords and SMS verification?
Well, I think that there will be more companies or more companies to start using in the biometrics authentications, but still you will need to have the option to use your password or for login or for any kind of access to applications. What I believe is that these digital identities that you have to authenticate with other companies, at the end you will be the owner of your identity, and instead of authenticate with another company, what you do is that you will have to share your identity, right? So right now, if you have 5 companies that you need to authenticate, like financial services, a bank, or a mortgage company, or any apps, that they will ask you to do the digital onboarding, so you have to authenticate your document and everything. By having your ID, you just need to do it once, and then you share your identification, right? If you have to update your address, you don't have to update your address in multiple applications. It will be in just one place.
So imagine, as an expert with all your years of reg tech and thinking about anti-money laundering and that sort of thing, you're a pretty savvy consumer. So what advice do you have for our listeners, maybe that would be non-obvious, about how you protect your identity?
Well, what I always say is that basically make sure who you are sharing your personal information with, your credentials. Try to use 2-factor authentications in every application, because there are some apps that it's optional, right? So it's up to you to use the 2-factor authentication. There are some that force you to use it, but there are others that it's up to you. So try to use that. Like you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, don't use the same password over and over. Yeah, it's quite difficult actually. If you have, like me, I have hundreds of passwords from different applications. If you want to use one password per app, imagine it will be very difficult to manage.
It seems like the bad actors always find a way to stay a step ahead of consumers who are naive. Will that always be the case, or do you think there'll be a time when the technology will actually, outpace the bad actors.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that this is the beginning of the digitalization. This is the beginning of how everyone start working remotely, and then in the next few years, everything will be like this. No? Everything will be about digital IDs here, and then biometrics authentications in every other application, and then but after that, you know how is this? The cybersecurity is like you mitigate one of the fraud scenarios, and there is another one. So,
well, Jaime, this has been a pleasure. I got to get you off the hot seat, but not without answering one last question for me. So,
yes.
you're an expert in security and identity fraud, but you're also an expert in South Beach and Florida living, having been there for more than 30 years. And I mentioned before we started recording, there's this net outflow of talent from the Bay Area, where I am in California, to South Beach and areas around Florida. Give us the pitch. What's so compelling about Miami, and why is everyone flocking to there from all over the country?
I think the weather, no? We have
part of it.
There is summer every day of the year here. Miami is becoming the hot tub. I mean, it's everyone is coming to here to most of the companies are opening an office headquarters here in Miami. So yeah, it's becoming a Miami tech.
It used to be that Miami had to come to Silicon Valley to get the tech talent. Now it's going to be the other way around soon. Silicon Valley is going to have to go to Miami to get the tech talent back.
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's been really enjoyable. Where can our audience learn more about Preventor?
They can go to my website. It's preventor.com, very easy. And there is a page of resources, so very helpful if they want to learn more about identity verification, fraud prevention, anti-money laundering. There is a lot of articles and resources.
Good. We'll make a point of sharing some of that in the show notes. This has been great. Thanks for stopping by, and maybe you'll come back in another time and we'll share an update on the company and the state of the technology.
Of course. Thank you, Dan.
Excellent. Jaime, my pleasure. That's all the time we have for today's episode of AI and the Future of Work. I'm your host, Dan Turchin, signing off for this week, but of course, back next week with another fascinating guest.